We are going to be making equivalent fractions. So go ahead and get your notebook, find a blank page, and you can title it Making Equivalent Fractions. This just means we're making fractions that equal each other. So they're different, but they equal each other. And so the basic rule is if you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number, you will get an equal fraction. All right, so we're going to show what that looks like. So we'll start with the fraction 1/2. And so we're going to draw what that looks like. That would look like one thing split in two pieces, and one of those two pieces is shaded. But if we make an equivalent fraction, to make an equivalent fraction, we would need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So let's try it with 2. So if we multiply the numerator by 2, and we multiply the denominator by 2, you get 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. We draw a picture of 2/4. That would be one thing split into 4 pieces, and 2 of those would be shaded. If you notice, looking at our models, you can see that those things are equal in value. So even though their numbers are different, we have 1/2 and 2/4, they equal each other. And so why does that work? Well, if you think about 2/2 as a fraction itself, we learned yesterday that fractions are division. So this is division. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. And anytime you multiply something by 1, you just get the same thing. Like 5 times 1 equals 5. So 5 times 2/2 will also equal 5, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that's why if you multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number, you're going to get an equivalent fraction. So let's try again with a different number. We have 1/2. Say this time we multiply it by 3, the numerator. We have to also multiply the denominator by 3 if we want it to be equivalent. Now would give us 3/6. If we drew 3/6, we'd have one thing split into 6 total pieces. Remember, the denominator tells us the total, and then the numerator tells us what part of that total we're talking about. So 3 of those would be shaded. And as you can see, it's still equivalent. So 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, they're all equivalent. And we can multiply the top and the bottom by any number as long as we do it the same number, and we will get an equivalent fraction. So let's try again with another fraction. Let's do one, maybe like 2/3. So if we have 2/3, 2/3 would look like one thing split into 3 pieces, and 2 of those 3 pieces are shaded. I'm going to draw it marker. All right, I want you to choose a number to multiply 2/3 by, but you have to multiply top and the bottom by that. So essentially you'll be multiplying by 1, which is why it will equal, that's why it will be something equal to it. So pick anything you want, multiply the top and the bottom by that. I'm going to go with 4. I'm going to multiply the top by 4 and the bottom by 4. And that will give me 2 times 4, which is 8, and 3 times 4, which is 12. So 8/12 also equals 2/3. We'll do one more with 2/3. I'm going to go with 10. If you multiply the top by 10 and the bottom by 10, then you're essentially multiplying by 1, which will give us something that equals 2/3. So 2 times 10 is 20. And 3 times 10 is 30. So 20/30ths also equals 2/3. All right. This works with multiplication. If you multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, you get an equivalent fraction. It also works if you're dividing the top and bottom by the same number. So let's try some with division. So it's the same rule, but instead of multiply, it's divide. So same thing. If you divide the numerator and denominator by the same number, you will get an equivalent fraction. So this is helpful if you want to simplify fractions. This is what you will do. So let's look at some examples. Say we have the fraction 6/10. Well, this year I'm going to have you simplify your answers whenever you're writing your answer to when we're adding fractions and subtracting fractions and multiplying fractions. You will have to put it in simplest form. So this fraction right here is not in simplest form. So what you will do to get to simplest form is you have to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number until you can't divide them by the same number anymore. So we'll work on this more on Friday, but 6 and 10 can both be divided by 2 because they're both even. So if we divide the top, the numerator, and the bottom, the denominator, by the same number, we will get an equivalent fraction. It'll just have different numbers. So let's try dividing by 2 and dividing by 2. So 6 divided by 2 would be 3, because 3 times 2 is 6. And 10 divided by 2 would be 5, because 5 times 2 is 10. So we would get 3/5. That will be equivalent to 6/10. If we were going to draw each of those, there's 6/10, and then if we draw 3/5, it would look like this. You can see that they're equal, there's different numbers. And so 3/5 would be what I'd want your answer to be, because it is in simplest form. You cannot divide the 3 and the 5 again with the same number. So this, just like multiplication, works because 2/2, this fraction that we're dividing by right here, is essentially 1, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. And when you divide anything by the number 1, you just get itself. So like 5 divided by 1 equals 5. You just get what you started with. So that's why we can divide by the same thing over itself, because 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So it's like saying 5 divided by 1 equals 5 whenever we divide the top and the bottom by the same number. All right, so we'll practice a few more with division, and then you guys will do there's an activity to do with which one does not belong, and then you have a short assignment. So let's say we had 10 over 50. I want you to try to think of what you could divide each of those numbers by to make them smaller, but the fraction will be equivalent. The numbers within the fraction will be smaller. Hopefully you thought of 10, maybe you thought of 2. You could have thought of the number 5 to divide by. All of those are correct. I'm going to go 10 because that's the biggest number you can divide them both by. So if you divide them both by 10, now we're essentially dividing by 1. So we should get an equivalent fraction. 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 50 divided by 10 is 5. So 1/5 is an equivalent fraction to 10 over 50. Maybe you thought of 2. If you divided by 2, 10 divided by 2 would give us 5. 50 divided by 2 will give us 25. So 5 over 25 is also equivalent to 10 over 50 and to 1 over 5. They're all equivalent to each other. Maybe you thought of dividing by 5. So 10 divided by 5 would give us 2, and 50 divided by 5 would give us 10. So 2/10 is also an equivalent fraction. So there could be an infinite amount of fractions that are equivalent to the ones that I will give you on your homework today, but you will pick 3 of them for the first couple problems. Before that, you have your activity, it's which does not belong. You will be given 4 fractions, and you're going to find the one that's not equivalent to the other 3, and you'll highlight that one.